High society meets the Wild West. Old Los Angeles comes to life in Death of the Drunkard. Book 5 in the series by Louise Bannon. Welcome to Blackbird Writers Presents Author Interviews. I'm Sharon Lynn, and welcome to you, Anne.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for having me.
And I would like to know where you are right now.
Well, I'm actually at the backside of the Avila Adobe. It is the oldest house still standing in the city of Los Angeles.
All right.
And it is also the basis, or what I based Maddie's own Adobe on. Hey, it's here. What the hell?
So yeah, you have some like real life, tangible, this is what old Los Angeles would have looked like.
Yeah.
And so tell me why you're so interested in this particular time frame.
Well, as I've told the story many times, the series actually started with my husband talking about the Zanja system in Los Angeles, which was how they irrigated everything. And I can go into that whole story some other time. But the thing that was important is that it inspired Maddie Wilcox. And when I was trying to figure out where I was going to set this, when I was going to set the stories, I didn't want to do the Mexican era because I'm not Mexican. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think it was fair for me to tell that story. But I didn't want to do the Civil War either. Just wanted to avoid that one. LA was not a pretty place for people who were not Confederate sympathizers. And so I picked 1870. That's when Death of the Zanjero takes place. And of course, I'm going on from there, but it was just one of those things that happened. And it was a good one. Turned out to be a great year. Well, not a great year for people, but a great year in terms of lots of interesting things going on. In fact, Death of the City Marshal is based on the real life shooting of City Marshal William Warren, who was technically LAPD's first police chief, and he was shot by his deputy in a dispute over a hooker. That happened. I kid you not.
So a wealth of information you can pull from.
Oh, there was a wealth of stuff. And in fact, and sadly, not far from here physically, from this spot, not necessarily where I placed Maddie's Rancho, but is the place where the book 3, Death of the Chinese Field Hands, that is probably one of the worst mass lynchings in the U.S. 18 Chinese men lynched in one night during a riot. And that really happened too, which was not as fun as Marshall Warren, but it's the reality.
No, that's just bad.
That is just bad. But yeah, Death of the Chinese Field Hands takes place mostly in the aftermath, although I do start with the night of the riot. And so Death of an Heiress, though, is completely fictional. That's book 4, as is Death of the Drunkard. But I had some fun with it. You know, there was a lot of fun things to do and characters that carried over all the way from book 1. So
well, and that's kind of one of the interesting things about the series and Death of the Drunkard is, you know, even though that happens to be fictional, there's a lot that you've worked in that's real, just because, you know, you're standing in the Pueblo right now.
Yeah. Heck, I gotta get out of the doorway. Yeah. No, yeah, it's the idea is that there is a lot of history here in Los Angeles. It's one of the things I really love about doing the series is, you know, most people think LA was founded in like the late 20th century teens. No, guys, it's been around since 1781. By the way, even though this is one of the oldest buildings in the city itself was actually founded about 3 or 4 miles southeast of here, next to the Los Angeles River, or the Porciuncula River, as it was initially called. And that site got flooded out. I'm not sure when. And then they built it a little bit closer, a little bit higher ground. That got flooded out, which, you know, in a dry, arid place like this, it sounds a little strange, but yeah, that river does overflow. That's why they concreted it in the 30s. And so they rebuilt everything here, and the Avila Adobe was built in 1818. We've got a lot of history in this area, and people just don't even know. It's really kind of sad.
No, we start with Hollywood. That's
Uh,
that's where our minds are.
hey, look, I love Hollywood. A lot of our jobs, guys. I mean, really, it pays a lot of salaries, but you know, my neighbors, all that sort of thing. But I get a little tired of it. I really do. We're more than that, guys. Really.
Yeah, and well, and that's what it was so fun to read Death of the Drunkard and have just this um like what I always pictured as New York high society, you know, these are important people, yet they're still walking around on all these dirt streets and they're still like, you know, in the Wild
Yep.
West. And I loved that juxtaposition. And so that's actually one of my questions is how strong was the pressure in the 1880s for Old Los Angeles to actually become more than a pueblo and to become,
Oh
you know,
yeah, it was very, very big in the 1870s. In fact, that was one of the subplots in Death of the Drunkard, involving the coming of the railroad, which, by the way, had a profound impact and doubled and tripled the quadrupled the population almost overnight in the pueblo. And so yes, there was a big push, not only to get the railroad terminus here in LA as opposed to, say, San Diego. There was also a really, really big push to booster for the city. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the newspapers. Oh, we're such a great city. We're 10,000 people. No, they weren't. Okay, let's get that straight. They didn't hit 10,000 until closer to 1880. This is 1870s. Get over it. But they did. They were growing very, very quickly after that. I mean, they were 100K by the end of the century, which is a
wow,
lot of growth.
that's a lot of growth.
It was, and but they were boostering like crazy. And keep in mind, this area got really, really popular because if you had tuberculosis, you could actually get some comfort here. You couldn't be healed, but you know the climate. As people started finding out, hey, the climate here really works. This is like, oh, great, we can really, you know, do better. And I'm like, okay, this is good. So there was a lot of boosters. And the funny thing is, the high society of Los Angeles. I appreciate your comment on that, but it also kind of makes me laugh. Not because you're wrong, but because Maddie really is high society from Boston and Boston society, and she knows what real gentility is, but it ain't here. These guys are trying to be, you know, hoity-toity.
Yeah.
And they are basically the richest people in the Pueblo, and they're getting pretty damn rich. I mean, there's a lot of land out here. People are making a lot of money.
Mhm.
Oil hasn't really taken off yet, although tar pits were around. And, you know, if you're making kerosene, and kerosene was big,
Yeah.
it is not. It is a petrochemical, and so there was that. But overall, no, it would. This was not real high society. No New Yorker, or even a. I'm sorry, my tablet shifting. Yeah, but you know, a real New Yorker, a real Bostonian, who Laddie is, just kind of goes, okay.
Yeah, okay.
All
It's
right.
you're trying.
All right, you guys are okay. You're trying, very trying.
So let's talk about Maddie for a minute. So Maddie Wilcox is an accomplished doctor and vineyard owner, and also probably the best detective in the Pueblo.
Yeah, basically. Keep in mind, there is no such thing as detection at this
Right,
point. You will
exactly.
never hear Maddie talk about motive, means, and opportunity. She will never do that because that just didn't exist. Okay.
No. So is she based on any historical figure, or is this all just, or
She
several?
is it's kind of, she's not based on any real person. No. She sprang forth out of my head, and that's pretty much it. No, and I mean, there were women frontier doctors at the time. In fact, the frontier was the easiest place for a woman doctor to practice, partly because the need was so great. You
Yeah.
know, they had to, and medical training was a very different ball game in the 1870s. I mean, not everybody had a degree. In fact, Doc McKenzie is not. It has lots of experience, but no degree. Maddie does have a degree and attended medical school in Pennsylvania. I forget which city, but there was a medical school for women, and that's the school she attended. And so she had a lot of training and practice, and then of course she was a healing woman for a very long. She didn't admit she was a doctor until Death of the Zanjero, so which was a fun scene.
Okay, so and on top of all that, which is quite a series of accomplishments, she also owns a vineyard.
Yeah.
Um,
It was not an uncommon thing. In fact, this is the Avila Adobe is on Olvera Street, and that was originally Wine Street back in Maddie's day.
okay.
And so there was a lot of winemaking. And in fact, there is an old winery about 2 doors down from here. And LA, actually, California's, you're going to love this, California's commercial wine industry started in Los Angeles. There's a guy named Jean-Louis Vigne, who was very aptly named, who brought some of the first European varietals to the city back in the 1820s. In the 1850s, Matthew Keller had most of Malibu planted out. So, wineries and vineyards were not uncommon at all at the time. It wasn't the primary crop in the area. I think mostly citrus and fruits and stone fruits were, I forget what, but grapes and wine were a big deal. In fact, I'm gonna grab my, excuse me, I am going to grab my bag and show you something really cool and interesting down the way. Hope nobody gets car sick.
Well, and while we're headed that way, I know that you make your own wine, and I
Oh, my
believe
husband does, yeah.
and I believe you have some very old grapes. So you want to tell us a little bit about
They
that?
are right here.
There
In
we
fact,
go.
I'm looking at them. Actually, I got to turn around, but we're looking at them right now.
Oh, that's great.
These are 2 of the oldest vines in the state of California. And people don't realize that's them. And they're all on this pergola, and there are actually grapes. My husband makes a wine that was native to Los Angeles called Angelica. And they come from these grapes up here. These are probably 150 years old. I mean, Michael thinks they may have been grown in the 1850s. They are an exact match for this massive vine at the Mission San Gabriel or San Gabriel Mission. So, yeah, it's
That is
kind of fun.
very, very cool. And there we are.
There we are.
Yeah.
But Angelica is like a sherry. It's not a straight up wine. It was a fortified wine that the Padres made, and they named it for Los Angeles, but it's based on sherry or Jerez, which is Spanish in origin. It's the Brits who came up with the concept of sherry or the term sherry, even though they were talking about a Spanish wine.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
but don't tell the Brits that. They get pissy.
I'm all about the Brits, as you know.
Yeah, I know, darling. That's good.
So one of the Wild West aspects of this series is that almost everybody has a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And does that make it harder to, find suspects or easier to create suspects? I mean, as a writer, is it too many
It's
people
a
have guns?
gold mine. It's a gold mine. LA after the 1850s, when the Americans came in, LA was an insanely violent place. I mean, you're talking like people, there was one way I literally said a murder a day here. It wasn't that bad, but it was like one a month. And in a population of 7,000, that's a lot of bodies, So my big joke is I finally found my way around the Cabot Cove syndrome. You know how cozies, they're always in these nice little villages, and you'd never want to go to Cabot Cove because everybody got killed there every week.
Right. Yeah. It's like, yeah,
Right.
400 people and 200 of them are dead.
Yeah, I mean, hell, more than that. That show ran forever. Anyway, they had to take her out because there wouldn't be anybody left in the town. So, but I found a way around this. LA was that violent. Maddie would come across that many murders because the place was that bad. So I have a lot of fun with that.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely. So Maddie is on very, very good terms with her staff, counting them as friends, and she has some unusual friends as well.
Yeah, Regina definitely on the unusual side.
Unusual.
But they don't talk about that very
They
often.
don't talk about it. So how much would that have affected her standing in that society?
Well, it probably would have. I've never really thought about it that way, and I'm glad you brought that up because I really haven't up until now. And but the thing is, Mandy's already on the outs with society anyway. It's not so much that she's a widow, but she's been a widow for a very long time, and her husband wasn't that high up in society. So of course there's that. She has, what was I going to say? She's got this, oh, come on. I love it when I go these brain farts. But no, she's also a working doctor. Well, that puts her down right there.
Right.
Oh dear. Got a chopper going over. By the way, on the other Union Station's about that way, and on the other side of that is the helipad for the LAPD. So
I've heard a few sirens going by as well.
yeah, it's LA. What can I say?
It's
Anyway,
still
but anyway, it can be. But actually, no, our murder rate is nowhere near where it was in the 1870s.
Oh, that's
nowhere near. Yeah, it's way down, and that's a good thing. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it's down even more lately. Anyway, but as I was saying, she's already on the outs with society anyway because she's a businesswoman. She has a business. She sells wine and makes wine. So right there, society, I don't think so. She's a doctor and a working doctor. She accepts money for that, and she does. In fact, she's often griping about the fact that the people who can most afford to pay her don't or try not to. And so she's on the outs anywhere. So the fact that her staff, and they are Hispanic, they're Mexicans, that she's friends with Mexicans and a Chinese doctor, Wang Fu, who is one of my favorite characters. I was kind of scheduled to off him in Death of the Chinese Field Hands, but I decided I couldn't do it. I just couldn't.
It was just like they're going, no.
I want to keep this guy around. I like him. Well, and I do. I like a lot of my characters, but that doesn't stop me from offing them appropriately. But no, Fu did not have to die, so he's still with us.
That's excellent. Let me just check my list of questions real fast. We've kind of just been kind of morphing them all together. Yeah, which is a lot more fun just to have a chat. I
do. I hope so.
So I know that you write several series because I've read lots of them, and they're awesome.
You're very kind, dear. You're insanely kind. I love you. Oh my God, I love you.
And so I'm wondering, and I know you have something new that you're pitching. So just tell me everything that's happening with all of your series. So we have the
oh dear Lord.
Yeah.
All right. There's a lot going on. I am what they call prolific, and I'm good with that. I'm trying to learn how to be proud of it. Um, it's a right now I am blogging out. The Operation Pickline series is a series I put on my blog before I publish. So we are blogging book 11, Silence in the Tortured Soul, and that will finish up and be available as a book in April. Right now, of course, I'm kind of starting tentative research for Death of a Boston Brahmin, which Maddie gets to go home, and which is really going to be interesting because it's like you said, she has her staff are her friends.
Mhm.
Wait a minute, you don't do that in Boston by
No.
any stretch of the imagination. So this is going to be fun. I'm so glad you brought that up. It really helps.
Yeah, and I'm going to interrupt you and take you totally off course again. So, Boston 1880s, totally different than Los
Oh yeah,
Angeles 1880s,
well, 1870s.
1870s.
Yeah, I know, it's so easy to mess that up. I mess it
How
up
are you going to
regularly.
just dive into the research on that? And
Well, I'm probably going to use a lot of the same tools I use. I'm a primary documents kind of girl.
mhm.
I like newspapers, which technically aren't in some respects because they are the take on what people thought. But so I'll be looking at Boston Globe, which I'm 90% sure was around. But I will also start with some secondary sources to kind of get a feel for what the city was like. I'm currently reading, what's the name of the book? Marmee and Louisa, which is a biography of Louisa May Alcott and her mother. And they were part of that society. They were not prominent members, but the Brahmins were definitely part of their who they were and what they were involved with.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So I'm going to be doing some of that research. I kind of want to go to Boston, but frankly, the place doesn't look like it did. So, but I will be looking. I will be connecting with the Boston Public Library to look at pictures and things like that. And oh yeah, reading medical journals from the time.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, those are so much fun.
Those actually give me nightmares. I was we went to the Scottish Medical Museum in Edinburgh,
Oh,
and I was like,
hey,
oh no,
Joseph
no, no, I
Lister.
cannot look at that.
Joseph Lister. Are you kidding? That is like way big, man. He's the guy that came up with
I know,
sterile
which
surgery.
is why we went in. Still give me nightmares. I'm not good with doctors in the first place. Okay, so that's where the Old Los Angeles series is going to Boston next.
Boston. Yeah.
Okay, so Quicklime, Old Los Angeles. Are we going to see the next in your kind of cybersecurity series?
Well, yeah, probably if I can get my crazy friends to not insist I use Chat GPT. Oh God, somebody got hit over the head for that one. Let me tell you, it was. But yeah, one of the guys has this crazy scenario he's been wanting to do forever, and I have told him. Sorry, I've got to replug in there. I've told him it's great if you're writing a Marvel comic. Scoops, come on. I need a real story here. I need real people. But yeah, they were trying to write the sequel for me, and oh dear, like I said, Starch got knocked upside the head for that one.
Yeah.
Was not happy.
We're good at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, my two of my colleagues at my university are doing a contest this semester of it's just like a short 1-minute film, AI, man versus machine. The AI professor is gonna lead up the script written by Chat GPT and all of that, and then the digital video are gonna take they're gonna be the humans.
Good. Well, the humans will probably win. Honestly, it's not that. The thing is it's the problem with artificial intelligence is that it's artificial.
Yeah.
And I have said this so many times. We as humans are great at mitigating nature, or helping nature along, we suck at imitating it. And you want proof of that? Tell me how much a strawberry Jelly Rancher actually tastes like a strawberry. It doesn't. It's nowhere near what a strawberry is. So, it's artificial. We don't imitate nature very well. And my biologist friends agrees with me. So I've got my props there.
Excellent.
And I do have a cozy that I'm trying to get traditionally published, and that's first draft is finished. It's called Burn Test, and it's contemporary, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope.
I'm sure it will be. Never known you to write anything that's not. So,
oh, you're again too kind, darling. I love you. I'm not perfect yet.
Come there.
There's got to be somebody. I know there's people out there that hate stuff. So.
All right. So, where can our fans find you? Find that blog that has Operation Quicklime on it. Social medias.
I'm on pretty much everybody these days. I'm trying to experiment to see where I'm going to get the most traction. So it's taking. Facebook is usually the best way, and it's Anne Louise Bannon, ANNE. Don't forget that E.
Okay.
You can also Google me. Bannon is B as in boy, A, N as in Nancy, N as in Nancy, O-N. And that's AnneLouiseBannon.com is my website. You can also catch me on social media. I'm on Threads, Blue Sky. What the hell am I on?
Instagram?
Instagram. I just got on Instagram, so please follow me. Oh my God. I just saw a guy pick an orange off of one of the trees in the courtyard here. That's, the big joke that Michael has with the wines here is he has to worry about birds and critters and all that and tourists.
Is that grape good?
Yeah. So, somebody else just did it. All right.
Started a trend.
Mm-hmm.
And you've mentioned Michael, your husband, a couple of times. So just for those in the audience who don't know, tell us what Michael does.
Oh, yes. Well, Michael Holland is the archivist for the city of Los Angeles. He's also a records management officer, but yeah, he works for the city. In fact, he works in the same building where the helipad for the LAPD is on the other side of Union Station, which is a quarter mile that way. Yeah. From me. So,
So you have access to a good primary research kind of guy right there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. How do you fit? I've always kind of liked primary sources, but I really fell in love with him when I fell in love with him. So it's just kind of how it worked.
That is wonderful. Well, thank you so much for the tour of the Pueblo and the grapes and chatting with us today. And
thank you for having me. I had a blast. This is fun.
This was lots of fun. All right. And thank you all for watching Blackbird Writers Presents Author Interviews.